Hour 2 here on College Football Addiction. It's Black Sunday, but really there haven't been near as many firings, right? So it's more so just the hiring center of the world in the SEC and everywhere else, picking up new coaches left and right. But let's start with something that means a little bit more. How was you guys' Thanksgiving? Tom and I were talking about it a little bit off air, but Cole, I'll let you go first.
Nothing crazy. Had 2 different Thanksgivings, one with my brother and the new baby that just came into the family. So on Wednesday, Thursday went out with the in-laws, and then sat at home, watched the Egg Bowl and the demise of what was going to be the end of the Lane Kiffin era as we knew it.
Tom, good weekend?
Good weekend. Can't complain. A lot of good time with the family, a lot of football, both pro and college. Texas getting Texas A&M on Friday night. That was, I think, to some not a surprise, but also gave us a little bit of chaos that we were looking for.
I hate you so much. I knew better too. I knew it was going to happen.
It was fool's gold, man. It was fool's gold.
But the one thing that, there's nothing funnier to me than Georgia celebrating narrowly beating Georgia Tech in the cathedral of Georgia football, Mercedes-Benz Superdome in Atlanta, and celebrating on a last-second play that nearly went Georgia Tech's way, and they walk out with a 7-point victory, and they're taunting Georgia Tech fans like, dude, this is a bad game for Georgia, and it was not a great game for Georgia Tech, but yeah, a lot of stuff to look at from this weekend.
Yeah, well, let's start with the coaching stuff. That's the easiest place.
Yeah, anybody hear about Lane Kiffin today?
No. Were there some things that went on? I did. I don't know. Maybe Cole does. Tom, I don't know if you do, but I do a video once a week with Sports Talk Jay, who's a big Tennessee fan and does a lot of YouTube content. And he's great. He's an older guy, like in his 50s. He played golf at Tennessee, so he's he knows like what it's like to be a D1 athlete and all this stuff. But and he's great. And we just sat here laughing about. Not only was there so much drama for the last month of what was going to happen, but there was also the drama that has been the last 24 hours in the things that are being reported of not Lanegate, but Planegate, and what will happen with players. And I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the recording of the actual meeting that would happen, but just the drama, and in true Lane fashion, like nobody's shy. Oh, wow. Can you believe it was dramatic with Lane Kiffin? But LSU gets it done. They get their guy. The ramifications for Florida, for Ole Miss, for the rest of college football are still unfolding. And shoot, the playoff committee brings their rankings out in 48 hours. So we'll find out if anything happens there or not too. But just a drama-filled day, and no other way that I guess it could end, right, with Lane Kiffin.
Nah, it was always meant to happen this way. It was always going to be this way. And at the end of the day, Lane Kiffin had to make a decision. What do I want? Do I want to be the head coach at LSU? Or do I want to be the head coach and lead the Ole Miss Rebels to the playoff? But you weren't having both. And I commend Keith Carter. I commend the chancellor standing their foot down and saying, if you believe in Ole Miss football so much that you are going to coach us in the playoffs, that means that you're going to sign the contract extension. He said, no. Okay. Best of luck in your future endeavors. We'll see you when we face off against you next season. You'll get the same type of welcome atmosphere that you had when you went to Neyland for the first time after being Ole Miss's head coach. That's just what's going to happen. And now comes the conversation of where does Ole Miss go from here for the college football playoff? It's already been reported that Pete Golding is going to be the next head coach. There is a rumor that Charlie Wise Jr., who did get on the plane with Lane earlier today, could very well come back and be the offensive coordinator. Nothing is entirely closed just yet. I don't think that's going to happen personally, but still, we can have that conversation when we have that conversation. There was no right or wrong answer here, in my opinion, for Lane Kiffin. There's just a Lane Kiffin answer is the best way to put it. I've said it multiple times on the show, and I'll say it again. I think when run properly, LSU is the best job in college football. I fully believe that. No questions, no other if, ands, or buts. It is the best job in college football. I also believe that Lane Kiffin would have stuck around at Ole Miss if he knew that he had an opportunity to get the Alabama job. He is not going to get the Alabama job. That's just not going to happen. So he eventually ended up going to the next best thing that was out there. He is going to have a field day with his offense and his identity working alongside with what currently is on the staff defensively. They have incredible talent in the state of Louisiana that he is now going to be able to have in his backyard to say, listen, we're changing things on up. We're making a couple of differences. We're putting ourselves in the new spotlight of college football. We want you to be a part of the Tigers program. And every single one of them is probably going to say yes, because of when you grow up in Louisiana, you don't dream of playing for Lane Kiffin. You don't dream of playing for Ed Orgeron. You don't dream of playing for Les Miles. You dream of playing for LSU. So you go out and end up in playing for LSU. Then you throw in the fact that Lane Kiffin is a whiz when it comes to the transfer portal. Okay, so now we got a guy that knows how to evaluate talent. And one thing that was very clear that not enough people, I think, gave credit to, Lane knows how to develop talent and put it to the highest level to when that kid leaves to go off to its next school, off to the NFL, they are better prepared. Every single recruit that we have seen over the last 5 years that ended up being a first or second round pick underneath Lane Kiffin was probably a day 3 selection when they got to Oxford. So now you throw in the development of talent when it comes to the transfer portal, the recruiting aspects, expectations are going to be high. There's a lot of things that Lane Kiffin is going to have to do in the next several days. That includes figuring out if Blake Baker is going to be on his staff as defense coordinator. The same thing goes for guys like Frank Wilson. Corey Raymond's not going anywhere anytime soon. So it feels like that he has got to be able to put a staff together and then retain as much talent as possible from this current recruiting class while also flipping some kids during early signing period to get here. It's a travesty that he is not going to be coaching in terms of the college football playoff because I think that we need Lane Kiffin in the playoff. I think that Lane Kiffin being able to accomplish all of his goals that he wanted to do this past season very much was something that was rewarding of being in the postseason conversation. Here's the bottom line, gents. You can't be the LSU coach while coaching Ole Miss. You just can't. It can't happen that way. You two are rivals. You two are bitter enemies. We have seen the way that both of you have come for each other's jugular in the past. You can't be the LSU head coach and lead Ole Miss to the college football playoff. So ultimately, Lane had to make a call. He decided that he wanted to go with LSU. And you know what? To be completely transparent, you know what he just told everyone at Ole Miss? In the best year that we have ever had in program history, in the best season of our school, where we are and how close we are to being in the SEC title game, and we have a shot to do something really special, you're still not good enough for me. You're still not good enough. That answered everything you need to know about where Lane Kiffin was and where his heart was in this entire conversation.
The things that Lane Kiffin has said today, especially, and put out to the universe, his conversations with Nick Saban, Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, I believe, especially said to him, hey, your dad would want you to go and try this, and that this kind of falls into that territory of the what ifs, one of those big jobs out there, kind of like USC was once upon a time for Lane Kiffin. I think at the core of this, you need to understand that Lane Kiffin is not a good person. I think that should be pretty evident across the board. I was one of these people that a handful of weeks ago was like, you know what? Oxford's meant a lot to him. It's meant a lot to his faith, to his family, to his sobriety, all those sorts of things. And I got duped just like a lot of other people got duped. People that are Tennessee fans, USC fans, Raider fans, they'll all tell you the same story about Lane Kiffin. And he said something really interesting today to Marty Smith that aired on ESPN. He said in his time praying and reflecting and thinking about what his dad would want him to do, he's talked about the impact that he can make on people. That's ultimately why he does this. Well, that's bullshit, because he's also said at the same time, this isn't about the money. Well, he's going to be the highest paid head coach in college football going to LSU. Probably would have gotten that if he'd gone to Florida too, fair, but was Ole Miss going to do that in terms of the money? The rumor is yes, but LSU making him the richest coach in college football, $100 million. So you can't say it wasn't about the money. And then impacting people. Why is it, Lane, that every time you leave a place, they're flipping you off on a tarmac? You're not impacting people's lives in a positive way. Now, that might be a sweeping statement. There's probably plenty of stories of players, coaches, human beings, fans, whatever, that do have positive things to say about Lane Kiffin. But what's that ratio? Ratio is probably not very good, is it? Lane Kiffin showed these people of, who are college football fans, all that sort of stuff, who he was years ago. The whole Tennessee debacle. This was just it turned up to 11. Why can't you just be a decent professional and leave a place better than you found it in upstanding capacity, in an upstanding manner? The fact that you had to do this charade for weeks and weeks, that the branch of CAA sports known as ESPN has come to have your back, and you're a victim, Lane. You're a victim of the calendar, that darn calendar, guys. It gets all of us at the end of the day. It's been really sickening to see the way that the sport and the business of the sport have gotten behind this and fueled the behavior of a narcissistic child. And we're now in a situation where Kirk Herbstreit, if you pay him enough, he'll say whatever you want him to say. David Pollack, who also claims he's a person of great faith, also repeated the exact same marching orders with CAA, didn't he? It's just fascinating to me. Also, the bots got out there real quick, didn't they, on social media to repeat a lot of the same messaging out there of just like, hey, let's, good things happen at Ole Miss, and let's just be grateful for those things and cheer those guys on, and best of luck to the Tigers this coming season. This whitewashing, etc. It's really sickening to watch this whole thing go down. And here's the thing. There's probably a contingent of LSU fans that are really, really excited about this and think that this is going to be something tremendous. Remember, Lane Kiffin hasn't won shit in the sport of football. Nothing. Now, as a coordinator, I understand it. His stuff at Alabama, yep. But as a head coach, he's won a lot of games. He's been in a lot of bowl games, all that sort of stuff. How fast is the clock at LSU? How fast is the clock in Baton Rouge? How quick did the media in Baton Rouge turn on Brian Kelly in the last few years when there was a Heisman Trophy winner not too long ago? Great success for Kelly in Baton Rouge at one point in time. How quickly will they turn on Lane Kiffin if he does not come through because you just sold your soul to the devil?
What I will say is, just real fast, TJ, Lane Kiffin was never going to be worth $14 million. He wasn't. And unfortunately, that was the going rate. So now you're getting paid a lot of money to go have instantaneous results. The pressure's on for Lane Kiffin in Baton Rouge. It is. Just the bottom line. Lane Kiffin has never been able to win a college football playoff game. Technically, he's never coached in a college football playoff game, even though he will have a team that went to the college football playoff. He's had one 11-win season in all of his stops, and all he can really say is that he's been able to promote several players to the NFL. I do believe Lane Kiffin is a championship caliber coach, but the pressure that you are going to face at LSU has raised tenfold. It just is the bottom line. So good luck to you, Lane. I hope that you're able to prove a lot of people wrong. But it is definitely going to be a challenging playoff moment.
So I was planning on asking this anyway, but Paul asked in the chat. We appreciate the regulars and the new people that are watching. We do this usually on Mondays and Wednesdays, but we're on a Sunday night here. The Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. We'd love if you subscribed to the YouTube channel. But because it's being brought up, if they lose their entire offensive staff, let's say no players defect, right, or leave, which I would be surprised if they did. If there'd be another conversation to be had if players started jumping ship before a playoff run, because they can do it later and be fine. But if they lose their entire offensive staff, what will the committee do? I think that's a very valid question. I don't mean to be the Scorindex lover that, the committee did this to us because of 2023. However, and I'll say this, I do not want Ole Miss to get left out of the playoff. Like, there's no part of me that wants that. I don't even want them to get docked from like a home playoff game to a road game. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's the nature of the sport. I don't think that's the spirit of the sport. I don't think we should ever get there. However, the committee set a precedent a few years ago about leaving guys out because of hypotheticals of this guy's out or this guy's not playing or this coach isn't here. And if you look at their requirements, which I know they kind of waffled on this a little bit, and they said, well, we wouldn't have a data point to know how Ole Miss looked without Lane. None of that is in the bylaws. You know, when you look at the committee can factor in key availability of coaches and players. It doesn't say if you've seen 3 data points that show you they're worse, right? Now, I like that logic of, hey, we saw Florida State without Jordan Travis. We didn't think they were as good. We dropped them down. That's not written anywhere in what they have written out. Is the committee going to penalize Ole Miss for this, whether it's missing the playoff completely or just, all right, you got to go on the road. We don't think you're a top 7 team anymore. We think you're a top 11 team, and we're going to put you there. I think that's an interesting angle of this. And again, we'll find out in 48 hours what they're going to do.
If Ole Miss is penalized for losing its head coach, then making sure that they had a head coach in place that is going to be here for the long haul, and nobody opts out, and they are left out of the playoff, cancel the damn playoff. Just cancel it. Because that would be what you're setting a precedent of. What's the point of even having a playoff if you're going to tell me in one breath that an 11-1 team with its best season, with no players leaving, with everyone still bought in besides the head coach, is now punished because of one person's overall demeanor and, dare I say, neglect for the bigger picture? Sorry. I'm sorry. College football playoff needs to be completely thrown to the wayside. You don't need to have it. Just go ahead and go back to the BCS mantra where you have two teams play for the national championship. That'd be it. I'm sorry. That's just the way I feel.
I feel the same way, but I also felt that way 2 years ago at this point. So I don't disagree with you. I don't think LSU, I keep saying it. I don't think Ole Miss should be left out. But again, I felt that way not that long ago. And I think we can all agree that I don't think Ole Miss is as good without him, but quantifying that is difficult. So, Tom?
It's hard to say, like, to the points that Cole was saying before, Charlie Weiss Jr. is the play caller and he's able to stick around through the playoff run. That remains to be seen. That could change things. This is a very different vibe than when Jordan Travis went down for Florida State, TJ. And I can't speak for this as a Florida State fan, but just remembering that time, it really felt like a body blow to what Florida State could be. This feels very different. This feels like the snake has been driven out, almost like you've gotten poison out of the body in some ways. And you can feel that this is galvanized Ole Miss potentially even more. A lot of videos of players coming out of the meeting that happened today, recording of the meeting, sounded overwhelmingly positive. So I think it would be negligent to say one SEC team that had a tough schedule and managed to get to this point to keep them out of the playoff. Yes, I agree with Cole that it's like, what are we doing if this is the case? And also, I think for all the political elements of this that I was talking about before, networks, agencies, the playoff committee itself, you got a lot of negative blowback today for Lane Kiffin that you were trying to quell over the last few weeks. If you keep Ole Miss out, you stoke the flames in a really, really bad way. Not in a way that, oh gosh, we're going to get more viewership for LSU versus Ole Miss next year, but you're just going to continue to piss off college football fans.
Can I also just say that this isn't a 4-team playoff to where if Florida State was in a 12-team playoff, they would have been in. They just would have been docked at being a top 4 seed and have the first round bye. Like, that's the difference here. So it's like, it's a 12-team playoff. And it's like,
I think I don't know if either one of these are likely. I think what would be more likely is they go from having a home game to then a road game. If you dock them, is Lane Kiffin and that entire offensive staff, which I don't know if we'll know that, but we'll know that by the final.
We'll know that by next Saturday.
Right. If that's the case, is that worth going from 7 to 9? Like, again, and I do agree with Tom, like on the toxicity and the cancer thing, but I also think that Lane, like similar to Brian Kelly talking about LSU, getting rid of that was good for LSU. Lane also meant more on an in-game basis than I think Brian Kelly did because of his ability to adjust, his ability to call in plays, and really be a surgeon on the offensive side of the ball. I also agree on the 14 playoff and the quarterback and the way that we saw them. So I'm not in disagreement on any of that. I just think Lane means more to Ole Miss than Brian Kelly did to LSU. Then, I don't know what's another coach in this thing, like that you would say, Joey McGuire means to Texas Tech or whatever, right? Like, I think he is more instrumental in their success.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, if you say they got to play a road playoff game, all right, it sucks, but so be it. They'll figure out a way to do it, and they'll find a way to go win a playoff game on the road against Oklahoma, against Georgia, whoever it is. They'll figure it out. They'll do that part. But you can't leave them out of the playoff. Like, if they were 10-2, you have an argument. You very much have an argument because there's too many 10-2 teams. They're 11-1. Like, we're sitting in a world where we have 7-5 Duke potentially winning the ACC and letting 2 G5 programs in over Vanderbilt, Texas, Miami, Utah, and BYU, regardless of what happens on Saturday. You're not kicking out an 11-1 SEC team. Just it would be the dumbest thing in the world. And more reason for Greg Sankey and Tony Petit to go, we don't need this. We'll create our own playoff. We'll go get the sponsors. We'll go get the boosters, and we'll continue to have our success. You can have your hoity-toity little playoff thing over here. We're going to have the real game between the two conferences.
Let's keep it on Ole Miss for a minute. What do you think about Pete? Do you think? All right, I want kind of two answers on this from you, Cole. One, how involved do you think Ole Miss was in trying to find another coach, or was it always Pete Golding? And then what do you think their trajectory is with him?
So I can tell you straight up that they really did believe that Lane was going to come back. They truly had a theory, and Keith Carter was 100% adamant. Lane will eventually be back. He will pick Ole Miss. He loves this program. We've given him everything that he needs. He is going to be a part of the future. So they probably were vetting some candidates. Last night, I got told they made a phone call over to Alex Golesh. He was already locked on into the Auburn job. They made a phone call to Lands Sumrall, basically going as a last-ditch effort. Signed, seal, delivered, was already locked on into the Florida gig. Made a couple of other phone calls to names that they thought maybe were going to be around. Weren't interested. They said, okay, well, Pete Golding, we have to go ahead and give ourselves the best chance possible to retain as much of this roster right before our biggest moment in program history. All these things that were necessary. And Pete Golding fit the bill. He did a lot of good things behind closed doors. He was a good recruiter. He had changed the way the defense had been playing over the last few years. He had done a really good job of developing talent alongside with Lane Kiffin. He had a former relationship with Lane during his time. He was very highly recommended underneath Nick Saban, who told him when he was let go of the Alabama job to go ahead and hire him out at Ole Miss. He has been very much involved in the program. He has helped see the trajectory of the way that the game wins. So I think if there's a ceiling, here's what I will say. I think when it comes to Pete Golding, the money that wasn't utilized toward the contract of Lane Kiffin needs to be spent and allocated towards the NIL and the transfer portal resources. Ole Miss has finally turned the corner into a program that I believe can be a top 15 consensus university year in and year out. I think if they have the right resources, I think they have the right attitude, I think if they have a formula that works on trusting the transfer portal and the development of talent always being a major factor. They have to give whoever was the next head coach all the amplified resources as possible to put themselves in a position where they can be successful, where they can outbid other teams that are in the what you would consider tier 2 level of the SEC, where they can easily look at the resources that come for NIL purposes, where he can continuously make sure that players stay locked on in. And if they do all those things and they invest properly, I believe that Ole Miss is going to be consistently in that 9-win range with a guy like Pete Golding at the helm. If not, then unfortunately, I think that he's going to be about a 7-5 coach. And 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to be having a conversation. Is Pete Golding the right guy to take on over? But it did feel like it was Lane or bust. They made some phone calls. Wasn't really promising on either side. We have somebody right now that we believe can be as good as a coach if we build around him with the right resources. Pete Golding, you're the next guy at Ole Miss.
Tom, your thoughts on Golding?
From the outside looking in, not knowing a whole lot about Golding and if Charlie Weiss Jr. was out, not that Charlie Weiss Jr. was ever going to be the guy that they would be like, you should be the head coach now. But it also felt like, yeah, like we kind of have to make a decision here. I like the choice to not make him the interim head coach, but to just make him the head coach. It's very late in the season. Obviously, you're going into a playoff run. So to be in a situation where interim head coach, signing days around the corner, transfer portal, playoff run, off season, all that sort of stuff. Just sit with this. Like you're dealing with major trauma right now and you're trying to get this all right. So from the outside looking in, it makes sense. And the response from his players seemed very positive. So I think that's, again, another part of this we were talking about before. Florida State years ago when Travis goes down, felt like it took the wind out of the sails of the football team. This move, I think there's plenty of players who were posting on social media saying, good riddance, get out of town. Trey Harris, I think, posted something to that effect. And then you're hearing players leaving the building saying it's the Pete Golding era. People are excited about it. So if that's what they need to stabilize in the here and now on this playoff run, because this is not a program that's had this opportunity often or if ever within the history of the program. So you have to do something to just keep things on track for right now. So I certainly am rooting for Ole Miss in this whole thing. I do think it would be a travesty if they would be kept out of the playoff for all this mess that was created by one person, and that's Lane Kiffin.
If you were Ole Miss, you kind of had to know this guy flies really close to the sun.
Yeah.
Like, nobody at Ole Miss can really be that shocked.
You should.
No.
Like, you knew, I hate to be so cliche, like whatever you want to say. Leopard doesn't change his spots or whatever. Like, ultimately, this is just Lane, and so they can't be that surprised. And again, but I do wonder, Cole, like, is Pete Golding the long-term answer? Like, is Ole Miss is Pete Golding the coach there in 4 years?
I don't know. I will say, I think that at a place like Ole Miss, with the type of talent retention they were able to bring on in, if you have a competent coach, you can get to 9 wins. I think, again, Ole Miss being a 9-3 program year in and year out, competing for the college football playoff every season or so, they probably are going to say that Pete Golding is doing his job. At some point, we need to see you get over that 10-win range, but 9-3, constant growth, constant success. We're doing better when it comes to recruiting. We're still having ample numbers in the transfer portal. By all means, I think that it comes to a point of where when you start to see regression set on in, you're not able to land premier players. You're not able to continue to see growth when it comes to your recruiting numbers. The metrics take a massive step back. Then frustration kicks on in. I don't have a feel at either way on Pete Golding. I think what this really comes down to is the organization and the athletic department putting their money where their mouth is and saying, we are going to make sure that we give Pete Golding every opportunity to be successful. Here was the money that we were going to give Lane Kiffin. It's now going towards Pete Golding's staff. It's going towards his transfer portal numbers. It's going towards all of his recruiting metrics. We're making a state-of-the-art complex upgrade. We're doing things that are going to make us still a premier team in college football with or without Lane Kiffin. I think that really is what's going to decide the Pete Golding era. It's out of Pete Golding's hands. You know what it is, guys? It's a lot like Ryan Silverfield right now at Arkansas. Like, it doesn't really matter who you were going to hire. If you don't have the proper resources and you're not fully investing into the coach and giving him reasons to believe that this team is going to be better suited for what he has at his disposal, you're not going anywhere.
Let's go to UF, but just before we do that, my guy Jack Sparrow taking a moment to come off of the high seas. Shout out Sports Talk Jay. Listen, I love Sports Talk Jay. Again, if you guys haven't seen his stuff, go to YouTube and waste half an hour watching like 3 or 4 videos because it is good content. And go FSU. Listen, we need all the love we can get. Appreciate you, Jack Sparrow. Just an absolutely properly rated. Now, I think people do really love it, but just one of my favorite movie series of all time. I loved the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff.
They were great. They were fantastic.
Are you a fan after 3, though?
They all kind of just blend together as one long movie for me because usually if I watch. So, yeah, no, it did get pretty weird. I mean, 1 was like next level phenomenal.
Yeah, 1 was great. Yeah.
2,
I thought 3 was fantastic.
I remember when I went and saw 4, I was like, man, this is getting out there a little bit. But yeah, he was always funny enough to like carry it for me. Like Johnny Depp did a great job. So
there is no such thing as Pirates of the Caribbean 6 with Margot Robbie. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe that is a movie that will exist in the world where you don't have Captain Jack Sparrow.
We should do a live watch party for it. Do a reaction.
If she's in it, if she's in it, I'll give it a shot.
If she's in, we'll find. I'll suffer through it, I suppose. Before I get in trouble, let's go to sleep quick and get some love their way. CFA will get you a 100% match up to $100. We appreciate Sleeper for all that they've done for us. Catch us live on Wednesday at noon so you can play the more or less game with us for conference championship Saturday. Appreciate Sleeper. Check their terms of use because terms and conditions do apply. Florida. Boy, there was some confidence in Gainesville, Cole, that they had this thing, and there were times where you and I mean, Tom even too, like we had Lane wearing that visor instead of the purple and yellow one. But Florida whiffs here. If you ask them, they walked away. It's kind of like when you invite the girl to prom and then she hasn't answered you for like 2 weeks. And so you say, okay, well, just a kidding. I'm taking back my offer to go to prom to the homecoming queen, but
that's cool.
We're going to give it to somebody else. Yeah. And they're like, okay, well, she wasn't saying yes anyway. So yes, UF may have walked away from the table. Certainly they were getting left at that table or altar or whatever you want to say. They land Lands Sumrall, who We talked about what might land at Auburn. We talked about might land at LSU. There were other options. Kentucky, obviously, where he played. So UF gets him. I want to hear your thoughts on both, missing on Lane, what went wrong there, or was it just because all the connections were there for Lane? I'll say that. Like his dad coaching an hour and a half down the road in Tampa, his wife, meeting her there, just all the things made sense for UF. They got into this thing earlier. Was LSU, I know you say LSU's the number one job when it's run properly. Was it just too much for them to overcome? How did they bungle this? And then thoughts on Sumrall.
Well, I don't really know what eventually did go down. If it really is true that one booster said, listen, I'm not done. You got to make a decision to me now. And if you don't, then I'm just going to pull all my funding and you're not going to have resources. I don't know if that's true. I really don't know the entire story. What I can tell you is that Scott Strickland and basically all of Florida boosters were told, you are going after Lane Kiffin and you are making him tell you no. We are not going to let him tell you no. That was it. So they put all their eggs into the Lane Kiffin basket, and they said, we are getting Lane Kiffin. They felt very confident about getting Lane Kiffin. They figured that Lane Kiffin was going to be choosing them over over LSU. And I'll be real, Florida's a better job than Ole Miss. It is. It's a top 10 job in college football. I think it's a very good job when run properly, too. But Lane started to be a little distracted. Lane's phone calls were kind of to the wayside. It was very clear it was down to two teams, LSU and Ole Miss. And so they pivoted. The problem is that when they pivoted, they let Scott Strickland stay in control of the head coaching search, and it became disastrous. Multiple names were brought up that were very highly qualified. Jed Fish, who coached underneath Steve Spurrier, was one that was mentioned. He has NFL ties. They just hired Dave Caldwell as their new GM. He is a Florida alum. He loves Florida. Wasn't a guy they were looking at. Lincoln Riley quite literally had his people call out to Florida and say, if you make an offer, he will come. He will leave USC and make it over there. Scott Strickland didn't want him. Scott Strickland said that he wasn't named. They started looking around at other places, and eventually they looked at John Sumrall, his track record, his resume, his attitude, and the way that he goes about his business and said, that's the guy that we think is the best fit to replace Billy Napier. It's a night and day difference. And I'm going to be completely transparent. I think it was the right call after saying no to all the other names. And John Sumrall is a hell of a coach that I think Florida fans would be gassed up to have if they just didn't hire a G5 coach from the state of Louisiana 135 miles away from New Orleans. Like, honestly, I think that's the only reason why they hate this hire. But he's a good dude. He's a great mastermind defensively. His attitude is night and day different from what you're getting in Billy Napier. Like, do you guys remember there was a game like 3 weeks ago where they looked god-awful again, and they ended up putting together a really meaningful drive, and they won, and he goes on the broadcast, and it's and it was like, how do you feel about this win? And he goes, honestly, guys, we don't deserve to be ranked. We don't deserve to be in the college football playoff. We don't deserve to have our name mentioned alongside these other great programs. That's the attitude that you're getting to come to Gainesville, and he is going to let full control be had by the next offensive play caller. They are going to actually make an offensive play caller hire, which is a big reason why Billy Napier struggled. And they're going to throw a lot of money at players that they know are potentially looking at leaving in the transfer portal to stick around. So, like, all the things are there, but it's just the process of how you got to the situation. It felt like that you were kind of really just throwing a dart and praying to God that it hit with the top G5 name available, and hopefully it ends up panning on out, because if you can't have back-to-back times where you make a hire of a G5 candidate and he ends up fizzling out. But I really like John Sumrall. I think this is a very, very smart hire by Scott Strickland. The way that you got there is the reason why everyone is so frustrated. And I'll be completely honest, Scott Strickland butchered this coaching search. And somehow he still walks away a pretty good winner because of John Sumrall is a hell of a coach.
I would agree. I think Sumrall is a good coach. That said, I thought Billy was a good coach coming there. Similar. They enter with similar accolades, I think, coming into this. And so I was talking with Jay about this earlier. The same way that you said Pete Golding needs to get everything that LSU or Ole Miss was offering Lane before he left for LSU. And I know that's tougher with the booster support and the donors and people that were excited about Lane, but to give Sumrall less than you were going to give Lane probably is going to give you worse results than you would have gotten with Lane. And I don't think Lane was a sure thing to have success at Florida. So I think Sumrall can be good. I like a lot of what he does. He could very easily turn. It's so tough with some of these coaches, man, to know what it'll eventually be. It won't shock any of us if 3 years from tonight we're doing a video with Lane out at LSU, Sumrall out at UF, and Golding out at Ole Miss. It wouldn't surprise me if all three of them do well. Coaching is such a crapshoot, and the average SEC coach gets 4 years. And I think that number is going to continue to decline because expectations and investment are so much higher. But I think overall Sumrall is a good coach. I don't know, because you mentioned the expectations that LSU has for Lane Kiffin, which are warranted. Florida has the same kind of expectations, warranted or not. And they were not going to give Lane a lot of time to win. I think Florida fans truly would have expected, hey, if you retain Lagway and you retain Ball and you retain a lot of this talent on this team, Vernell Brown and Dallas Wilson, all these guys, we're going to expect you 9-3 next year, worst case, probably closer to 10-2, fighting for the playoff, especially with, the opponents that they have next year. I'm not trying to say the next year's schedule is cake, but they're going to start out 2-0. They've got Florida State, which is down right now. They don't play Miami out of conference. Their opponents are South Carolina and Kentucky. And then they do have the Georgia game in there too, which even if you lose that, you should win those other two SEC games. There's a lot of baked in wins on this schedule already. And so I think that the expectations would have been a little bit higher if it was Lane, but I think Sumrall's got to win 8 or 9, or the people that are already in a bad mood about him being the coach are in an even worse way, a worse way than they are right now. So I don't know how it'll work out with him, just because I think that is an absolute pressure cooker. And I think half the fan base already hates him because his name's not Lane Kiffin.
Yep.
All of the fan base hates Scott Strickland. And so, boy, that's a wild place to walk into. And that's not even oh, well, you're a Florida State guy, so you're hating on that. No, the Florida fans will tell you all of that. They hate him because he's not Lane, and they hate their AD. And they expect to win probably more games than is realistic off the bat. And, man, good luck to you, bro, because that is a wild place to be walking into at any given moment.
Here's all I will say, and I say this for every coach that is currently getting hired this offseason. If you hate the hire, by all means, hate the hire. Don't really care. But you better give them a shot and burn away with the athletic director. Hate the athletic director for the process of how they got there. That's just my stance on it. You have no idea what John Sumrall is going to be as a coach. You have no backing other than the dude just wins at every single stop that he goes to, and he's a great defensive mind. Hate on Scott Strickland, by all means, because if the guy is a bumbling idiot that quite literally has a job because Todd Golden won a men's tournament and the national championship in basketball. If he did not win the tournament this year, I guarantee that he would not have been hired. He would have not made the hire. They would have gone a completely different direction, and they would have offered a slew of cash to somebody that they believe was a better fit than what John Sumrall is. But I think John Sumrall is a really good coach. I think every single person that is a fan of a certain team needs to give their coach an opportunity, but you have got to start demanding better from your athletic departments. And it really does start with Arkansas and Florida, because both of you guys completely whipped on the hiring process, even though I think that both coaches could end up panning out to be really good guys. Doesn't matter. The way you got here is just disgustingly pathetic.
The comparisons to Billy Napier, another group of 5 guy, there's a lot of disappointment for UF fans, but I've said it before, and I agree with you guys when it comes to Scott Strickland. That's the problem within that entire athletic department. So whenever they decide to figure that out, maybe they can move forward. And it kind of comes back to what we were talking about with the whole LSU debacle, getting Brian Kelly out of there. Let's not pretend that Lane Kiffin's walking into a stable situation at LSU. Yeah, they have a lot of resources and they're excited they got their guy, but best of luck to everybody dealing with these athletic departments, man. Yikes.
Golesh to Auburn. Cole, we'll spend a little less time on this. We're
anybody other than DJ Durkin.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll be retained. But Golesh to Auburn, just quick thoughts on this. Did some of his shine wear off? This couldn't have been Auburn's first, second, third option, but just thoughts on this overall.
So I had heard that John Sumrall was always the leading candidate. It was his job to lose. What happened was that he started to look more into the details of what was determined for the Auburn job and things about the Auburn job that other people didn't like. He actually made a phone call, according to people that I spoke to Lane Kiffin. and asked him, what made you turn down the Auburn job a few years ago other than just Landry saying that she wanted you to stick around at Ole Miss? And it soured. Wasn't a big fan of the situation. He pivoted over to Florida. They realized that Golesh was a name that they really liked as a secondary option. Bring him on in. From an offensive standpoint, dude knows offense. Now, is it a little bit jolty, and is it a little bit, kind of statistical the way that Tennessee's is? Yeah, in a way it is. But they were top 10 in scoring. They were top 10 in total yards. They were top 10 in passing. They were top 15 in rushing. They went 9-3 this year. You saw continued growth in transfer portal rankings and in recruiting rankings. They were able to go 9-3 this past season. They were nearly a threat to go to the college football playoff. They ran out of steam very late in the process, but still, it's a smart hire if you want to bring in a new offensive jolt. I will agree with that. I completely agree that while DJ Durkin was considered a candidate internally, and there were a lot of people pushing for him on the boosters, there's no way that you could justifiably hire a coach that went 0-2 against Power 4 teams and say, look at how much we upgraded over Hugh Freeze. Now, I believe that he is going to be the defense coordinator if he wants the job, because you cannot bring Todd Orlando with you from Tampa Bay. You just simply can't. Todd Orlando is not an SEC defense coordinator. That is the quickest way to get you fired and put you on a hot seat almost immediately. So DJ Durkin, I think because of the players play hard for him, there is a good relationship on development of talent. The fact that he has been really important into adding in these top 10 recruiting classes back-to-back years, I think he could be there. It's going to be really interesting to see which players are going to enter the transfer portal, like Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, both of which have had big games in the past. What about the situation with Deuce Knight at quarterback? But I think that there were worse names out there that were linked to the Auburn job than Alex Golesh. Is it a slam dunk, absolute no-brainer hire? I don't think so. I think it's a very solid B hire for a G5 candidate that is ready to get a taste of the SEC. I still think that there could have been other names that were better. I'm not going to deteriorate and say that this is the worst thing possible. Talk to me in 3 years when Auburn realistically does not meet any expectations and they want to go ahead and run off another good coach. I mean, that's just where I'm at.
To your point, Cole, I mean, like, it wasn't a situation like, all right, well, who else is out there? Yes, it's late in the cycle, but like Golesh is a good coach. He's got good results at USF the last handful of years. And the thing I like about this is, to your point, and it gets lost often with this, is fit. I think it fits. And this is a coach that I think is going to be very aggressive in a way that Auburn is needed. That type of flag bearer who's going to throw the weight around of War Eagle. So I'm excited to see what Golesh does. The roster retention is going to be really critical, even though they had such an up and down season this year. There's a lot of talent for them to potentially maintain this year. Golesh is going to be tested immediately. Are you able to harness the power of Auburn and its NIL and its resources and really elevate this team? Because you have a lot of work to do to get through the SEC. And the other thing that we're missing in this is, like, think about all the coaches that are sitting tight as far as we know for right now. Kalen DeBoer, as far as we know, is sitting tight at Alabama, even though he's potentially been linked to the Penn State job. Eli Drinkowitz sitting tight at Mizzou. You know what you're getting at Georgia. Mike Elko signed an extension with Texas A&M. Like, it's an arms race within the SEC. I think Golesh at least gives you that bullish head of state that Auburn desperately needs right now.
I like Golesh a lot, and it's not just, well, it's largely impacted, but I mean, I liked him here at USF being in Tampa. I really was appreciative of what he did here, and I'm glad he's getting a great opportunity, and I will absolutely cheer for him to do well wherever he ends up, whether that's Auburn for a long time or if he has to kind of bounce up and down after being there for a few years. Cole, we've talked about this with every coach, less with Lane because I think it's more apparent what they're going to do. But the investment level, Auburn's never been afraid to spend money.
Nope.
And so is it a situation where will he have the financial support to overspend to maybe make up for some, I hate to say on the job training, but until a guy's coached in a Power 4 level, especially an SEC level, especially a place like Florida or Auburn, places that have insane levels of expectations, whether they're warranted or not, will they overspend like they traditionally have?
Maybe. By the way, Mike, I see you in the comment section. Yes, he was the offense coordinator underneath Josh Heupel, and he had the number 1 scoring offense back when he was at Tennessee's OC. So, yeah, he has had a lot of work in the SEC. The offense, again, is very gimmicky. It's a widespread offense where it's a lot of up-tempo. The wide receivers are spread out to ungodly lengths to where there may be a turnoff for several people. Like, that's just kind of where we are. So I'm not sure if that's going to translate on over to Auburn to land you premier players. I think that having the vertical passing attack, you're going to have a big emphasis on the rushing game. They will put attentiveness on giving him the allocation and the resources to be able to be a competitor this year and be a competitor for multiple years. I think that the problem is that we're going to have to see instantaneous results. That's the thing about Auburn that I've always criticized them on, is that they have their goals so sky high that they are viewed in such a light of, if you do not do X, Y, and Z at a high-end level, you're on the hot seat. When in reality, they probably need to be living in a world of, if we're 8-4 this year, it's a pretty good spot. But the problem is they spend money, and when they spend money, they demand results. That's why Hugh Freeze was out after 2.5 years. They gave him the money. They gave him the resources. They made sure that they were a premier spender in the college football landscape every offseason. And they said, all right, we're giving you all you asked for. Prove to us that now you can do the job. He couldn't do the job. Lo and behold, they fired him. So it'll be interesting to see what the overall length is going to be, what the rope is, and how quickly it starts to dwindle away when Auburn is going 6-6 or Auburn is going 7-5 and they're not beating Alabama for the 6th straight year, or and they're not winning against Georgia and they are losing out on recruits to other schools. But they'll give them the resources. I will promise you that Auburn will spend. And I think that they need to spend when it comes to a guy like Alex Golesh, because there are going to be some players that will look at his offense and say, it's not a fit for me. But then there will be some players that look at his offense and say, I would love to be there, including quarterbacks and running backs. I think especially running backs. And if they can land a really good running back, they can find themselves in a pretty good position, I would say sooner rather than later. And if they get a mobile quarterback, add that into the mix too.
Other carousel notes, and we'll be quick on this, and then we'll wrap up with the college football playoff. The big one, I think, is Silverfield to Arkansas. I actually don't know if anything else massive has come out today, and if I've just missed that, let me know. But the quick thoughts on Silverfield to Arkansas, and whether or not maybe Memphis will take Mike Norvell back since they haven't.
Tom, what do you think?
It seemed like Arkansas fans were a bit underwhelmed by the Silverfield hire. Would you agree, Cole?
A bit. A bit.
They went and got Coach Cal for the hardwood, and then Ryan Silverfield.
Like, James Franklin was at one point, I believe, targeted by Arkansas. So, like, I'm not the biggest James Franklin fan, but I still think James Franklin has a better track record than most of the coaches that were available in this cycle. Just saying.
They went from having James Franklin and Rhett Lashley as their top two candidates to then missing out on Alex Golesh, and before him, Eric Morris, and then going to a couple other guys like Kane Womack, who has coaching experience, to then going with Ryan Silverfield, who beat them in the Liberty Bowl earlier this season and proceeded to lose 3 of his last 4 games and be out of the college football playoff. I personally like Ryan Silverfield. I think that he is a solid coach, and I wish him nothing but the best. And I say this as kindly as possible to Silverfield because of hopefully one day he'll come on the Power 2 and he'll grace us with how he was maybe able to turn the tides in Fayetteville. You were walking into a death trap, buddy, and I feel for you. I was no ill will to you. But when the fan base unanimously is rioting all together with this hire, you're dead to rights. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And again, this is not a shot at Ryan Silverfield at all. This is a €100 check. You're sitting here making 6-7 jokes about the college football playoff, and instead you're missing out on multiple candidates. Let me guys ask you something. Why was Ryan Silverfield the 9th guy on the list, the first one that you called? Or the one that took the job? And you can say, well, yeah, he wanted to be at Arkansas. Okay, that's great. But at some point, you got to look back and ask yourself, what did these 7 other candidates not like about our program to where they said no? To where Eric Morris said, I want to go to the Big 12 and go to Oklahoma State. Where Alex Golesh said, Auburn that has these sky-high, unsurmountable expectations is still better than you. That's an internal problem. And the fact is that the university does not care about its fans. And at a place like Arkansas, yeah, buy-in is one thing. You need to have buy-in. You got to have a coach that wants to be there. But at the same time, you got to at least give the fans reasons for optimism. And they're coming to a point where like they had a protest outside with like 40 of them out in the freezing cold demanding that they were going to not be back next year. So at some point, they have to start pulling funding, pulling season tickets, not giving money towards the allocation towards the NIL portal. And that's not a shot at Silverfield, but it's clear that the university is not listening to its bread and butter and the way they cash in a check. And at some point you have to. Until there's a reason where it's like, hey, we did it your way. It ended up backfiring on us. We're doing it our way. You got to at least give the fans a reason to have hope. And it was evident by them putting out a crappy graphic of Razorback Stadium having the red smoke appear that nobody was bothered.
Read the room, man.
Like guys, 100 years, read the freaking room, dude. Yeah. Like you quite literally could not have made a worse hire in the eyes of the public. But then you talk to some people around the industry and they say this guy's really good at his job. Can't wait to see what he does. I'll just also end it on this. Nothing is changing at any of these programs if you don't have buy-in from the university in the terms of money. So if the Walton family, if all the billionaires out in the natural state, if Jerry Jones doesn't want to go ahead and chip on in towards the football program, nothing is going to change. You could have hired Alex Golesh. You could have hired Eric Morris. You could have hired Rhett Lashley, and you still would have been 7-5, 8-4. That would have been probably your best.
Another hire that I think is sneakily going to be looked back on as quite good, Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State. Getting rid of Jonathan Smith, while I felt it was way too quick, I think he got 2 seasons after the whole Mel Tucker debacle. Michigan State's been trying to right the ship for a number of years. Pat Fitzgerald obviously has gotten past his legal woes from his time at Northwestern. The reason I like this is because he spent his entire time at Northwestern doing a lot with a very small amount of resources. And at the time that he was doing it was pre-NIL. So he's going to have to get up to speed. That's obvious. But I think that's exactly what the head coach in Michigan State is going to have to do here in the short term, because it's not a destination for recruits. It is a region of the country where you're going to be able to recruit, and he does have a track record of winning. I think he'll be able to make Michigan State into a competent Big Ten football team again, because they've not been that for a while. And Aiden Childs might be leaving, but still a Big Ten football team that resembles a Minnesota, for instance, that's still going to win 8 to 9 games a year, be competitive, and make games difficult on you, like an Iowa, something like that. I could see Pat Fitzgerald doing that, and that's not bad for Michigan State. I know it's little brother to big brother within the state of Michigan, but still, I think it's a sneaky good hire for Michigan State to go get Pat Fitzgerald.
Did the rapture happen?
He's naked somewhere.
Let's go to the college football playoff real quick. Cole will just have to give his thoughts once we get back to him, or if he comes back to us. Again, maybe if he's in heaven, me and you missed the boat. That would suck. The Texas beat Texas A&M. We talked about this scenario. Is there any chance? Do they have any chance of making the playoff?
I don't think they should. I think the win against Texas A&M, while it was good for them, what it more revealed is that Texas A&M has that low end capability, and that I'd be shocked if they won it all, but they're going to be able to compete with just about everybody in the college football playoff. The bulk of that Texas A&M game, and Cole, I'd love to get your opinion on this, is that it was pretty ugly for Texas, especially in the first half of that game, but you held on and you got yourself a win. The body of work for Texas, yes, this win is good, but your entire body of work does not back up you being a college football playoff team.
You needed chaos to happen this weekend for you to even have an opportunity to get into the college football playoff. Not a single bit of chaos came your way. Oklahoma won, Alabama won, BYU won, Miami won, Utah won, Vanderbilt won, yeah. Michigan lost. But if Michigan were to win that game, it doesn't help you out in any way, shape, or form, because Michigan then would be 10-2 with the best win in college football, which you could argue you over number 3 Texas A&M is the best win in college football right now. And you have 3 top 10 wins. That's just where you are. So I think that Texas, again, there is a reason to believe that if they played this way at the start of the year, and this was the version that we saw take the field against Florida, they would have won that game. Guess what? You beat Florida. You have a loss to Georgia. You have a loss to Ohio State, 2 playoff-bound teams, a win over 3 top 10 opponents. You're in the college football playoff. I think if you played close, and still lost, and I mean actually played close to Georgia, you would have at least had a conversation.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have gotten. You got docked like 6 or 7 spots because you got blown out.
People want to go ahead and say, well, if we just would have scheduled a game against Rice or against against San Diego State, week 1, then we would have been in the playoff. Okay, let me make this clear. The reason why we're even having this conversation of you as a 3-loss team being a viable option is because if you scheduled Ohio State. The Ohio State game has nothing to do with why you are being docked. I think that even with a loss to Ohio State and losses to Florida and Georgia, you have a case. You're docked because of you lost by 25 on the road on national television, and you got outgained by 100 yards and lost the time of possession by 10 minutes to a Florida team that finished 4-8. Oh, and also let's just throw this out there. You had to go to overtime against Kentucky. That very well is probably going to be firing Mark Stoops in the next couple hours, and Mississippi State that went 5-7. I mean, you got to have the entire body of work, guys. We're going to give you the pros. We got to give you the cons.
Vandy, any shot?
I don't think that any team right now outside of Miami and BYU have a shot. And it sucks. It does. Because Vandy this year had a historic season that will probably never be accomplished again unless they're able to land premier talent and keep a guy like Jared Curtis, like the 5-star plus talent. It's their first 10-win season. They should be rewarded. But I don't see a scenario where they're going to be moved on up. They won by double digits against Tennessee yesterday. And in the AP poll, they got moved down 1 spot.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know about, I think, Vanderbilt.
So, yeah. All right. Well, then let's keep it there and then we'll wrap up. The locks are the locks. And it feels like we're fighting. Okay. Just quickly, yes or no. Alabama in no matter what?
No.
Close loss in?
Yes.
So I think less than 10, they're fine.
I would say less than 14, but yes.
Yeah. Tom, same thought? Or
yeah, if it's close. Yeah.
Yeah. As long as they don't get blown out, 17 or more, there's going to be some conversations to be had. I don't love the idea of I've said this a million times. I don't love the idea of penalizing a team that makes their conference championship while other teams sat home, but you also throw in the Florida State loss that Alabama suffered, and I get it. Which again, still after 15 weeks of football is probably the most mind-numbing result that is possible.
Yeah.
So you BYU. Here's what the craziest thing is: Bama and BYU win this weekend, and I think that is your field. We're going to get an ACC rep if Virginia wins. We're going to get 2 Group of 5 reps if Duke wins. There are 10 teams fighting for spots. Well, 8 of them I think are already qualified, but there are 3 or 4 teams fighting for those last 2. Bama and BYU win, which Bama's road is a little bit easier than BYU's is they're like a 2-touchdown dog to Texas Tech. That would decide it. I think Notre Dame and Miami get left out in that situation.
I think you have to. Well, number one, you're not leaving Texas Tech out. I'm throwing this out here right now. Texas Tech is a lock to be in.
I agree.
There's the 7 teams that I say should be locked. The 8 teams I say that should be locks to be in right now are the top 4 seeds. And then you got to throw in Ole Miss, Oregon, Oklahoma, and I would probably say Texas. Who's the last one? Texas Tech. Where's that? No, Texas A&M. My bad. Texas A&M. They're all locks. Alabama wins. They have to be in because they're a conference champion. BYU wins. They have to be in because they're a conference champion. But BYU has a head-to-head win over. Texas Tech has a head-to-head win over BYU in the regular season. That has to count for something. So the odd man out in all of this, whether or not we agree that they've been playing well, is Notre Dame. It just is. And then you can make the argument, well, Notre Dame shouldn't be in, and neither should Miami, because of one team isn't in their conference championship, one team doesn't play in a conference. Now the head-to-head argument doesn't matter anymore.
No. Okay, poetic justice. But what I hope is that if they both get left out, the committee finally ranks Miami ahead of Notre Dame. So that the last month of campaigning will not have been for nothing. Just Lord. And again, as a hater, Miami should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is one of the best 10 teams in the country right now, but on the field results have to matter in some degree. So
I do want to bring this up before we end things just real fast. What if BYU loses? And what if Alabama loses by 21? Do you put Miami in?
So Notre Dame's in, obviously. Yeah, I think you put Miami in. Okay, all that said, like, what if it's a fluky 21-point loss where it's a 7-point game with 5 minutes to go and they throw a pick six and then get it, I don't know.
Take it a step further. They are completely blown out. It is a straight up dominant win by Georgia, never in jeopardy of losing that game.
So I just don't love the idea of penalizing a team for playing an extra game.
Sure.
And yeah, if we get to 21, 30 points, if Kirby beats Alabama by 30, then what voodoo doll has he rubbed? Because he can't beat, there's not a situation.
He's never beaten Alabama. He's never beaten Alabama outside of a national championship. He's never done it.
So yeah, we're getting kind of crazy with our theories here. He'll go do it because I just said that, and I'm sure he tunes in. But I don't love the idea of penalizing a team for losing a conference championship games where other teams sat home. Teams have bad days, and if you had to play an extra game against a top 5 team, I really don't think you should be penalized for that. But yeah, in a situation where they lose by 21 or more, then they probably are going to get left out. That Florida State loss is going to come back to bite them at the end of the day, and I think Miami and Notre Dame get in. Although I think you can have an argument about Vandy instead of Miami. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think Vandy's resume is worth discussing.
I will say that let's say Duke wins on Saturday.
Oh God. That's what I want.
If Duke wins on Saturday, the College Football Playoff Committee will look at Alabama. They won't care about them having an extra game. They want they want to have an ACC team in to have the representation. They will put them on in. That is my theory. That is 100% my theory.
If Alabama wins the ACC championship game, they'll put Miami in, is what you're saying.
If Alabama is to lose by like 28, yes, I believe they will put them in.
Yeah, to give them a represent. I think so, but I
don't
see that happening.
I don't even think Alabama has to get smashed like that. I think if Duke, a 5-loss conference champion, that just doesn't compute. Like, I understand all the different.
No, they would have James Madison and the AAC winner in.
I know, but like, what are we talking about? We're gonna put, even if Duke wins his game, I get you earn it, but it's like you're gonna get smashed, murdered in the first round. Like, why in the world are we living in a world where a 5-loss team could even make it into this playoff? I understand the rules and the machinations of it, but
they won't be ranked higher. JMU will be winning. 2 group of 5s will be ranked higher.
He would be but let me ask you guys this. Here to be the funny thing. What if JMU lost the Sun Belt Championship?
Brother.
Then we have to have the conversation of a 5-loss Duke team being in.
We should get now. I don't care if they give us 1 through 40 on Tuesday night. We should get the rankings of where
they are.
I need to know where Duke is because they're got to be in the low 40s, high 50s right now.
Yep.
I need to know where the other group of 5, like where is USF ranked right now? Where is Navy ranked right now? Where is North Texas ranked right now? I need to see all that. Now I'm not going to because the shroud of secrecy
have we guys thought about this? What if the Mountain West champion is higher ranked than Duke?
Bro.
So UNLV that has no playoff hopes whatsoever. Nobody's even brought them up.
Who would that even be?
Their way on it.
Who would that even be? What team would that even be?
Boise State or UNLV.
Dear God.
Put Dan Mullen in the playoffs. I said this early in the year. Let's piss off the Florida fans.
Do it.
All right. I love you guys. I got to get out of here. The Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll be back Wednesday to talk about, I'm sure, the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC.
Maybe Penn State will have a coach.
Probably not.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Probably not. No.
And the Big 10 championship. And then maybe we'll throw in the group of 5 as one segment too. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. Talk to you soon here on the Power 2.